All right. Is Terry here?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you are. You ready to get going?
I sure am.
Fantastic. I will call this meeting of the Operations Oversight Committee and the Board of Retirement to order at 11:30 a.m. Terry, do you have a few announcements and a roll call?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
This meeting is being conducted virtually, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Mr. Knox,
I'm here.
Mr. Santos,
Here.
Ms. Gray, Ms. Gray, Mr. Sanchez.
I'm here.
Okay, Mr.
Here.
Sanchez, Mr. Moore,
Here. I'm here.
Mr. Kehoe, Mr. Robbins,
I'm here.
Mrs. Zapanta Alder, Mr. Pryor,
I'm here.
Mr. Harris,
Here.
Chair Bernstein.
I'm here.
Staff participating in the meeting include CEO Santos Kryman, DCEO Louis Lugo, AEOs JJ Popowich and Laura Guglielmo, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, CISO Bob Schlotfeld, Kathy Delano, Sami Vong, Celso Templo, Alex Yin, Cookie Harania from Systems, Cynthia Martinez and Erica Haru from Communications, James Beasley from Admin Services, and Shanita Peterson from the Process Management Group. Trustees, please use the Zoom chat option to be placed in queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute your mics until you are ready to speak, and we may now proceed with the agenda.
Thank you very much, Terry. Our first item is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 5th.
I'll move approval. A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Terry, would you take roll call, please?
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Chair Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We are on to public comment. I am not aware of any slips from the public. Have any come in?
I have nothing.
Thank you. Then we are on to our action items, and we have two today. The first is a recommendation submitted by our CEO Santos Kryman regarding the utilization of the services of Prime Government Solutions. Santos, do you have a presentation for us?
I believe Mr. Lugo Day.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair Bernstein, committee members. Just a brief statement regarding the agenda item. This agenda item was presented to board management to the Joint Organizational Governance Committee last month. We received good feedback from trustees, specifically as it relates to the path of this agenda item going to the OOC, and then specifically engagement among trustees as it relates to the contents of the board management memo. So staff did a great job of updating the memo to reflect trustees' responses and concerns, as well as incorporating trustee engagement in terms of
Cheryl, it's Les. How are you?
providing a survey. So we were able to capture that information, as well as moving forward, assuming the OOC committee presents this to the BOR, implementation engagements as we look at potential vendor PrimeGov solutions for our board management agenda. So with that, we do have a list of individuals that are ready to stand for questions in terms of the contents of the memo and any specificity that the committee has. Specific questions, I should say.
Thank you. And I should have noted there is a public memo dated January 13th, as well as a confidential memo also dated January 13th that should have been in everyone's packets. Are there any questions from trustees? So I'll just comment. I was part of the JOGC conversation and at the UC. I do think this belongs at the UC. I appreciate you all bringing it here, but I think it's a solid presentation and you did a good job of incorporating the comments. So we do need a recommendation if anyone would like to propose a motion.
Move approval. I'll second.
Thank you both. And thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone who was ready to answer questions. But again, I think it was very well presented. Can we take a roll call, please?
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Chair Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And this will now go on to BOR on the March agenda. Louis, is that correct?
Yes.
Correct. I'm sorry, I muted myself.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you very much. We're on to action item 3B. This is a recommendation submitted by Shanita Peterson, our process management group, that the committee approve the release of an RFP to solicit proposals for a prepaid debit card program to support LACERA members. There's a memo dated January 25th. And Ms. Peterson, did you have comments?
No, I would like to just thank the committee for allowing me to meet with you this morning to discuss a possible alternative for paper checks for our members. The alternative, as you know, from the documents that have already been submitted for this meeting this morning, would be for the prepaid debit card initiative. I am the project manager for the paperless payment initiative, which I feel the prepaid debit card would be a great alternative and something that will complement direct deposit for those members who feel that they cannot or will not or are unable to enroll in direct deposit. So with that being said, I did have a presentation, a very brief one, to just kind of share some findings of the research that I did on this particular payment method. So without further ado, I want to be mindful of everyone's time this morning. Next slide, please. As I'm not sure if everyone knows, but we did experience quite a few challenges, especially due to the pandemic. COVID-19 forced LACERA to find other payment options for those members who found themselves in a situation where they were unable to enroll into the direct deposit program here at LACERA. Being who we are as an organization, we're committed to, making everything as easy as possible for these members. So we were forced to find a better option, another option, for those members who did not want to enroll in direct deposit. Another challenge that we had was the United States Postal Office delivery issues. Everyone knows that we experienced a lot of challenges due to COVID-19. Some other countries weren't even accepting mail at one time. So a lot of them just closed the doors to that and made it very, very difficult for members to receive, if not at all, to receive their benefit payment, which caused a lot of calls, a lot of delays. It was as recent as late last year, November, December, I believe, that we received another notice from the United States Postal Office that they were going to have even more delays. In addition to that, and I know this personally from working on the advanced payroll unit, paper checks, we find ourselves with members losing or getting those paper checks stolen. That's always an issue, which causes, a lot of the replacement of a lost or stolen check requires work from 3 different divisions: FASD, member services, as well as benefits. As far as the printing, we had a situation late last year where the vendor printed the checks on the wrong paper. This causes other issues, delays, again, calls from members. So that, that in itself, we're constantly trying to figure out ways to better ourselves to get a more reliable payment method. Next slide, please. We currently have about 228 foreign payees. Again, that is where the real challenge came during the pandemic, getting those paper checks to those members who live abroad. Currently, because of the pandemic, a lot of those members found ways to get to enroll in direct deposit. These numbers seem low, 195 direct deposit, 33 especially, we're still receiving paper checks. Even though that number is low, it's important to note that the foreign payees either have to have a US bank account or they have to use a foreign bank that has a relationship with the US Bank. And some of our members who live abroad live in very remote areas. So it still causes, they find it very difficult to enroll in the direct deposit program. Next slide, please. So what is the best payment option for LACERA members? Next slide. Well, we still, as I have noted in the memo, direct deposit will remain the primary option. It's convenient and it's the least expensive. So the prepaid debit card would be a good alternative to complement direct deposit. Next slide, please. I just wanted to share a little bit of the research. Western Union actually was one of the vendors that wanted to come aboard. And you may, as I did, say, why are we talking to you, Western Union? You're a wiring service, but they actually have a subdivision, Western Union Business Solution, who they claim to be able to get that money to our foreign payees. That was their specialty, getting money to members who live abroad. The pros was that there was an ACH EFT payment program. One of the things I found in this research that was very, very interesting to me is that getting funds to members abroad is a very complex process, and could be very expensive. They did offer a 1 to 1.5% foreign exchange rate fee, which is extremely low compared to the standard of 3 to 4%. They offered an alive and well verification service. But however, their cons kind of overshadowed the pros. By the time we received the proposal, we found that they had a non-negotiable $500 platform subscription fee that had to be paid by LACERA. They had an extremely slow response time, to issues that our members may encounter with their payments. And then at the end of the day, they had a very limited ACH EFT program. Most of the program was going to be to the members for our members in the countries that they live, the funds would still have to be wired, which is much more expensive. At the end of the day, we just found that they were unable to adequately meet the needs of the organization. Next slide, please. So that brings us to what I feel is the best alternative, the prepaid debit card. The prepaid debit card is a lot of organizations, as you all may be very aware of, Bank of America actually offers a prepaid debit card for the unemployment, actually. So it is a very popular electronic payment method. It would be a great secondary option to the direct deposit, reduce risk and costs, and extremely convenient. The cons, like any item, would possible minimal fees or lost or stolen cards. But of course, because we are looking to do an RFP for a prepaid debit card, this would be one of the primary discussions with the vendor, whoever we choose to go with. Next slide, please. I wanted to share what I found with CalSTRS, one of our peers. During the pandemic, I found that I did a very short survey for some of the members of our industry partners, and found that a lot of them were experiencing the same challenges, especially with COVID. But the one that stood out for me was CalSTRS. CalSTRS experienced the same issues. Their primary financial institution is our State Street, as well as Bank of America, but they were able to implement the prepaid debit card right away. They found a way to get those funds over to those foreign payees. They had a very interesting implementation program of that, and a very smooth introduction to the new program. So I was very, very impressed. Next slide, please. The cost of the program. With anything, there's always going to be a cost. The there are several factors that go into the profitability model of a program like this. But the primary driver of a prepaid debit card is the card's revenue is most often found in interchange, which is basically where they pay the merchant pays for the use or the acceptance of that card. Another and more revenue is done through interest income. That's the money that are the funds that are made on the balances that are held prior to the card being used. But any additional cost information would, of course, be included in a real cost or a pro forma statement that we would get from any vendor that we decide to go with. So I'm sorry, I see a few hands up. Mr. Santos?
Oh, I'm happy to wait until the end of your presentation.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
No worries, thank you so much. Next slide, please. So that brings me, basically, I'm just for what I'm here for. I am looking for, PMG will request their approval of the Operations Oversight Committee to release an RFP to solicit proposals from vendors to assist us in getting a better payment option for our members to replace paper checks. Next slide. So with that being said, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Ms. Peterson. I have Trustee Santos in queue and then Trustee Knox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very supportive of the prepaid debit card. The only question that I have is some banks, and I have some experience with that because, as everybody knows here, I'm an immigrant and I send money to relatives in Colombia. And the problem that we have is that some of these, I'm going to call them agencies, are not only that they charge a fee to use their system, but also the currency exchange. We lose some money there. They don't pay the going rate that the banks paid in or announce what the dollar is worth. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying there.
I do.
Right. So it will be interesting. One suggestion I may have, humbly, is that perhaps provide the members, especially the members who reside abroad, with a list of banks that have relationships in the U.S. I know, at least in South America, Citibank is one of the banks that operates there. I'm not sure whether in the Philippines or other countries around the world would also participate. But what is good with that is that they are able to open up an account there to the banks that do business in the U.S. and vice versa, and that way the money could be deposited directly. I get it that some of our members are in remote areas, and so the prepaid card is ideal. In my view, just in your RFP, I will recommend to make sure we inquired what are the fees beyond the fee to be part of the program, meaning the currency exchange. Because LACERA will deposit, let's say $3,000 in the prepaid card, and when they use it, let's use my country, Colombia. The question is, how is the dollar going to be paid? Are they going to be paid in the local currency, or they're going to be paying dollars? So it's something for you to think about. But I'm very supportive of the prepaid debit card. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is part of the research. As I mentioned earlier, the whole currency exchange is extremely complicated and very complex. And that will definitely be a conversation that we will have with the vendor. So thank you for that. And I have noted your recommendations and thank you so much for that.
I have Mr. Knox in the queue and then Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Chair Bernstein. Appreciate the information this morning. I'm supportive as well. I was going to mention that in my department, treasurer, tax collector, we've been working for, geez, I think a couple of years to develop a similar program for foster youth. So we can, put money on a debit card for them to buy, things that are necessary for their ongoing, living arrangements and such. And it takes a long time. Granted, we're dealing with a population that is not always sophisticated in finances like a lot of seasoned adults would be, or a lot of mature adults. So we had, concerns related to safekeeping and financial literacy. But there's a lot of differences we learned from entity to entity, bank to bank, in terms of just little odds and ends. And as Mr. Santos pointed out, fees in particular for lost cards or transfers. And that's before you even get into international issues that are also tricky as well. So certainly supportive. I think once we get back the responses, it'll be interesting to see what those differences are and what makes the most sense for LACERA. And then I think you can also leverage LACERA's, I think, our reputation to try and push for things that would serve us best and not just take what is provided on its face. And then if my department can assist, in my day job in any way, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to me, because we have relationships with all the banks. But my follow-up question was, is this something I think we anticipate this meets the needs of people that are having issues getting paper checks, but would we open this up to anybody that wanted it, that's a retired member? Just, I don't know why necessarily, but just, is that something we'd make available to them?
In some of the conversations that I've had with other stakeholders, I believe we would. I think that some members, because it will be a branded card, it would be a Visa branded card. So we would be able to open that up to other members if they decide they'd rather have that. So for sure, I think so. And I wanted to mention that CalSTRS initially opened this up for their foreign payees, but due to the success of the program, they are now preparing to open it up to their domestic members as well.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Gray? Oh, thank you.
I actually was going to withdraw my question. My question had to do with user fees by our foreign retirees, but I think everyone has brought that up, Mr. Santos and Mr. Knox. I mean, that is my biggest concern. I don't think it's fair to our retirees to have to give up 2% of whatever's on the card, or, every time they use the ATM or something else, whatever they use the card for, they have to give up these fees, and it's cutting into their retirement money. And it's not in terms of their spending ability, it's just the privilege to use their money. So my concern is actually the fees that they would have to pay. And certainly, I guess we don't have much control over what a foreign country will charge, but we do have control over what a bank would charge operating in that foreign country. So that was my only statement, but I think Mr. Knox and Mr. Santos had covered that. So thank you.
If I may, I just do want to say that depending on the structure of the program, and again, that would be something that would be discussed with the vendor. It can be structured in a way that there would be low to minimal cost to LACERA members as well as LACERA. One of the items that I did go over with CalSTRS, one of my contact over there did mention that they were very strategic at developing a plan that would keep the cost very low to none at all, actually. So, but thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for the questions, and Ms. Peterson for the answers and the information. We don't have a motion, but Mr. Rice, if you're here, one thing I'd like to get clarified. The recommendation is that we approve the RFP, and I'm newly back on this committee. Is that within our authority, or would we be recommending to the BOR that they approve it?
The board approved procurement policy gives the OOC the ability to authorize the issuance of RFPs for administrative and operational matters, which this is.
Great. Then staff recommendation is appropriate. I'd be happy to go ahead and move it if somebody would like to second it.
Second.
Thank you. Terry, if we could get a roll call.
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Aye.
Chair Bernstein.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. Look forward to seeing how this progresses.
Thank you so much for allowing me to meet with you this morning.
Of course. And we are now on to 4 reports. The first is our LACERA operations briefing.
Good morning, Chair Bernstein. No particular comments at this time, just stand for questions related to the memo that's been provided to the committee.
Thank you.
Only Mr. Lugo, if I may,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, with regards to the case management program, and happy to see that we are at the point of RFP. This is something that my understanding is that this board has been asking for years. I believe the first individual who made the request for a case management system was Mr. Eve Sherry, rest in peace. So I just want to make those comments that it's about time.
Thank you, Trustee Santos. And we just had our meeting a couple of days ago, and we are down to the final 3 to 4 vendors for finalist reviews. So we're progressing through that project.
Thank you for that comment, and thank you for bringing up Mr. Cherry's memory. Anything else? Then we will go on to 4B, business continuity tabletop exercise and disaster recovery test results. And I have Mr. Beasley and Mr. Templo here to speak about that.
Thank you. Good morning, almost afternoon, Mr. Bernstein and members of the committee. I am James Beasley with Administrative Services, and along with me to conduct this presentation is Celso Templo, the IT manager from Systems Division. We are here to provide the results of the tabletop and disaster recovery test that was conducted on December 2nd. We will begin by providing some background information about the process of the tabletop exercise, including the scenario that was implemented for the test, and discuss the results and the next steps. We will then conclude with questions and answers. We will defer any questions that we deem confidential and will answer them during the closed session. The business continuity tabletop exercise and the systems disaster recovery exercise were conducted together since both have one goal: organizational resilience. This is very important to LACERA to fulfill our promise to produce, protect, and provide the promised benefits to our members. The tabletop exercise was designed to drive open discussions around continuity strategies related to member payroll and to move through hypothetical scenarios in a safe environment. The scenario provided 4 separate escalating situations that required focus and immediate crisis communications between the LACERA Incident Response Team, also known as LIRT, the boards, key business partners, stakeholders, and LACERA members. The goal of the exercise was to elicit immediate solutions utilizing the required business continuity plans and identify gaps and develop solutions to mitigate any risks in order to increase LACERA's business resilience in the long term. The business continuity team and facilitators from the vendor Castellan Solutions created a challenging tabletop exercise with input from subject matter experts from participating divisions at LACERA. These subject matter experts did not participate in the exercise as it would create an unfair advantage to the participants and affect the overall objective of the exercise. The focus of the tabletop exercise was on one of LACERA's critical business functions, member payroll, and our ability to transact our investment business and processes and pay our member payroll even during a doomsday situation that would require participation from our essential business partners. The exercise included participants from the executive office, investments, finance and accounting, benefits, systems, the alert team, State Street Bank, and Makita. The situations that you see on the screen occurred on critical dates that would have an impact to the payroll process. Each scenario was handled differently based on the objectives, and each one provided a real-world situation that could have a negative impact on the member payroll process. The team worked together to develop an action plan to address each scenario while using a business continuity plan to manage them. Since each scenario contains some level of sensitive business information, I will provide just an overview for each one. In situation number 1, the participants were challenged with a cyber attack that prevented the ability to create a member payroll file to send to the custodial bank. In situation number 2, the custodial bank core banking system went down after upgrade to the system, creating some downtime. The upgrade impacted our ability to transfer funds. The estimated downtime that impacted LACERA's operation was 5 days. In situation number 3, LACERA's check printing vendor had an internal crisis of their own, which impacted LACERA's ability to send member payroll checks. The estimated downtime that impacted LACERA's operation was over 30 days. As Ms. Shanita Peterson just presented, the prepaid bank card solution was one of the after action items that was addressed in the tabletop exercise to research. Great job, Shanita, on the presentation. In the final situation, number 4, LACERA was challenged with a funding interruption that was created by an earthquake that affected the region around Pasadena. The earthquake scenario impacted LACERA's ability to conduct investment transactions. The CIO, the principal investment officers, and the CEO were unreachable due to the crisis event, and the situation escalated to a doomsday situation. This is where our critical business partners responded on LACERA's behalf to ensure the member payroll was processed. The culmination of the tabletop exercise is the after action report provided to us by Castellan Solution. This is a post-exercise evaluation based on 10 pre-established areas of excellence and crisis management techniques. The score received in each of these 10 areas were provided or based on the performance of the participants, the response to each situation, and implementation and effectiveness of the business continuity plan for each scenario. There was an improvement in the performance evaluation from the last tabletop exercise. In the last tabletop exercise, we had 3 areas where we scored 100%. In this exercise, we had 4 areas where we scored 100%. As you see in the slide, these areas were activation of LACERA's incident response team, assessment of the root cause, recovery location diversity, and crisis change control. The exercise facilitators were impressed with the capabilities that LACERA team had in its arsenal to address and overcome the scenarios that were presented. Overall, the participants performed well above the facilitator's normal expectation in that they engaged with each scenario well and effectively worked as a cohesive team to address the issues presented by the facilitator. The participants of the tabletop exercise received an overall score of 94% out of 100. This is excellent on their rating scale. So what is next? The exercise action items identified by the team and the facilitators have been added to the business continuity project plan, and the team has begun working with key parties to make the necessary updates to the business continuity plan and the crisis response plans. The next tabletop exercise is projected for late spring, where we'll be testing each division's business continuity plan. Celso will now continue the presentation with the disaster recovery exercise results. Celso?
Thank you, James. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chairman Bernstein and trustees for having us. Next slide. Today, I shall be talking about the highlights of last December mock disaster recovery, as well as the test results and improvements in comparison with the January DR testing. The objective of DR testing is to ensure that LACERA's organization can resume mission-critical functions in the event of data loss or a disaster. As the table shows, we declared a mock disaster at the December 2nd, 3 p.m. in conjunction with BCP tabletop exercise. Our DR team restored the system on the same day at 6:30 p.m. Next, testing ensued during at December 3rd until December 4th. 15 business divisions completed their testing, having 37 subject matter experts that tested 115 applications and sites. Our restore recovery time, which is the amount of time to restore our systems, amounted to 5.5 hours. This includes 2 hours of our smoke testing. Smoke testing is usually a quick preliminary testing to ensure that no glaring issues are present to the main event of a major release or the start of a day-to-day operation. In this case, the major event is our disaster recovery testing. Recovery point data, or the age of our backup, was the same day data. The DR team restored from the December 2nd, 7 a.m. morning backup data. An after-action report containing recommendations from the business divisions has been completed and is available for everyone's review. The goal is to utilize this report for process improvement and lessons learned and apply it for the upcoming DR exercises. One of which it will be what James Beasley mentioned this next spring. Second slide, please. This next slide reflects the timeline, activities, and the teams that participated in the December DR testing. As I mentioned in the previous slide, in conjunction with the BCP tabletop exercise, a mock disaster was declared on December 2nd. Next, the DR system team performed several tasks involving the restoration, verification, and validation of the critical LACERA system. Finally, the business division tested and validated their critical applications. Next slide, please. In continuation, this slide itemizes LACERA's 15 business divisions that participated in testing their mission critical application. The only exceptions with the testing were the LA County hosted sites such as EHR, ECAPS, or DHR. We excluded them on the testing for their non-LACERA hosted site. As you can see, the test results were all successful in accordance with the specified timeline. Next slide, please. This next slide shows the improvements gained from the two previous DR testing. As far as the RTO, again, the amount of time it takes to recover our systems and data, RTO improved from 75 hours down to 5.5 hours, resulting from the December's DR. Likewise, the recovery point objective, which is the age of the backup that was used for recovery, December's DR had less than 24 hours of RPO versus January's 132 hours. As I noted in the previous slide, the DR team utilized the same day data backup. Hence, RPO is less than 24 hours. Finally, December's DR, next slide, please. Oh, go back, sorry about that. Finally, December's DR had 15 divisions that participated, having 115 applications and sites that were successfully tested. These are significant improvements compared to January's DR that only had system division participating, which resulted to 15 applications and sites tested. As a note, one of the major factors that contributed to the improvement of our RPO and RTORs was that our mainframe DR site had been hosted in the cloud during our DR testing. Consequently, some of the recovery, restoration, validation, and verification tasks associated with the December's DR were automated and more seamless as compared to January's DR exercise. Next slide, please. This concludes our presentation wherein we discuss the why, scenarios, testing processes, and evaluation scores of our business continuity tabletop exercise. In addition, we shared with everyone the mock disaster recovery objective, results, activities, and improvements from previous DR testing. We'll gladly entertain any questions that you may have, and for any confidential questions, we'll transfer the closed session to answer each of them accordingly. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you both so much for that. Are there any questions from the trustees or comments? Well, clearly it was an excellent and thorough report. We appreciate it very much. I would be happy to entertain a motion at this point. I'm sorry, it's a report. There's no motion needed. I'm new. So with that, thank you again very much, Mr. Beasley and Mr. Templo. And let's move on to item 5, Terry, items for staff review.
We have none.
Thank you. For good of the order, it's been a long day and I'm sure people are looking forward to their lunch. I'm not going to do a full roll call. Is there anyone who'd like to contribute to good of the order? please feel free to jump in.
Just wanted to thank the staff for the tremendous report. Keep up the good work.
I'll second that motion. So with that, I would be happy to entertain a motion for adjournment.
No, we have.
I'm so sorry. Bonnie is reminding me that we have an executive session. There is a third page to this agenda, people. Humor me. Without objection, we will move into executive session. Thank you, Bonnie.